It's 11 GMT. You're watching Al Jazeera live from Doha. I'm Fully Batibo. These are our top stories. There are reports that anti-government forces have fought off Gaddafi's troops near the town of Nalut. Armed anti-government groups are manning checkpoints in the area, but fear Gaddafi's men are preparing another attack. Meanwhile, the Libyan leader has laughed off suggestions he should leave the country. In an interview, he also denied using airstrikes against protesters, but admitted planes had bombed some military sites. And in other news, Yemen's president has hit out at Israel and the United States, saying they're behind the unrest sweeping his country and the Arab world. One more now on our top story in the uprising in Libya. Let's take a look at some of the latest developments there. As we've been hearing, anti-government forces are preparing to fight off Gaddafi's troops near the town of Nalut. Now, the town of Misrata is also under opposition control, but more fighting has been reported there. Troops have launched an assault on the Ras Lanouf oil refinery near Gaddafi's hometown of Sirte. And a wave of government attacks has hit the rebel-held towns of AlJazeera and AlZawiya. Gaddafi is facing mounting international pressure to step down, but in an interview with international media, the Libyan leader was defiant about his position and appeared to be in denial about the opposition he's facing.
No demonstration at all in the streets. No one against us. Against me for what? Because I am not president.
But then
they love me, all my people with me. They love me all.
But if they do love you,
they will die to protect me, my people.
If you say they do love you, then why are they capturing Benghazi and they say they're against you there? Why are they in Zawiya?
It is a guide. It is guide, not my people. It is guide. Guide, yes.
Who would leave his homeland? Why do I leave my homeland? Why do I leave Libya?
That's the Libyan leader speaking there to international media. Let's now speak to Al Jazeera's Tony Bertley, who joins us from the eastern city of Benghazi, a main stronghold of the anti-Gaddafi movement. Tony, tell us about the situation there, about the mood there. Is the city firmly in the hand of anti-government forces?
Completely 100% solid anti-government, anti-Gaddafi people here. And while they're hoping for the best outcome, that's a peaceful solution, they're also preparing for the military one. And while the threat of an attack along the ground by Gaddafi forces is receding perhaps by the day, in the air, there's still a possibility that Gaddafi could unleash what remains of his air force in a final act of retribution.
The firing may be practiced, but these men have determination and conviction. Both could still be put to the test.
No like Gaddafi, everybody strong. The Ajdabiya people very strong.
AlJazeera is one of the last main towns standing before pro-Gaddafi forces in eastern Libya. And if there is an attack, this is where the main line of defence will form. 80 kilometres down the road towards Tripoli is the town of Brege, and this is the new front line in this uprising. A little way past here lies Gaddafi territory. This is our area of control, he told me. After 40 kilometres there are Gaddafi forces. They attacked nearby 2 days ago, and there is still danger here. Understandably, tensions are high here as fighters check for escaping Gaddafi supporters and mercenaries. Confusion is easy, speculation is rife. The threat is real as Brege is strategically important, controlling the main road to Benghazi and also one of the country's biggest oil and gas installations. The state-owned Sirte facility processed thousands of barrels of oil a day from the nearby fields. Now, like all the country's oil fields, it is in the hands of the opposition. But they are worried.
There are fears that in a final act of retribution, Gaddafi will do what Saddam did in Kuwait in the first Gulf War 20 years ago and set the oil installations and the oil fields ablaze. Oil will be the lifeline for the new Libya, but in the old Libya, relatively few ordinary people benefited from the huge wealth it generated.
For a seemingly rich oil-producing country, Libya in the countryside has few trappings of wealth.
In Libya, the petrol wealth doesn't reach the people. It's spent directly on Gaddafi and the people around him.
Libya was making around $150 million a day from oil. It's hard to see any of that in AlJazeera, which is now suffering from a shortage of food and medicine. A walk through the local hospital tells the story. It serves 250,000 people, covering an area of 1,000 square kilometres. It manages on a budget of less than 5% of what is needed and survives through handouts and donations.
People maybe died because of shortening happened here. And many of people go to Egypt and Tunisia to treat it there because the facility, no facility enough to cover.
There is much to put right in Libya, much that the people need. But what they need most now is their leader to go.
Certainly a dire situation there for the people in eastern Libya, Tony. How are they feeling the power vacuum there? There are these councils that have been set up, of course, to organize daily life. How organized are these councils, and are they able to get consensus among them about how to move forward?
It's difficult to get a sort of a handle on the consensus because people are still riding this wave of euphoria about their liberation here and still the concern that remains about what's happening in the coming days and weeks. But there is a semblance of order emerging from this. You've got a series of committees for defence, for education, for public amenities, for example. That's starting now. There are some voices of dissent, some concerns that some of the faces that are appearing in these committees are from those people who were serving under Gaddafi. People here want a new start, completely new beginning. They say they've had 42 years of autocratic oppression from Gaddafi, and they want a new beginning with people with a new mindset, if you like. The old order is not acceptable anymore.
As we speak, Tony, we see people behind you there praying in Benghazi. Tell us about the daily life of the people there. We saw in your report, of course, that it's been difficult for some people in certain parts of eastern Libya to get food, perhaps. Is that the case in Libya, in Benghazi as well?
It's very hard to hear you because we've got a lot of wind here, but daily life it's difficult for these people. Most people are still not back at work, although some people are going back to work. You're seeing me now. Basically, these are still all to do with the events of last week and the liberation of this place. We've just got prayers here. A few minutes before you came to me, there was a funeral of a man who was killed during the uprising, facing off against the army. So they're still very concerned about what is happening immediately. The food situation and everything else is something now that's being sorted out, we're told. Benghazi is more fortunate than some of the towns further west because they have greater access to the Egyptian border, for example, where supplies are coming through. I've got Egyptian doctors here, aid is coming through from them. But generally, for the west, it's more difficult. For here, it's getting better by the week. But the organisation is starting slowly.
Thank you very much, Tony Bertley, for bringing us the latest there from the Libyan city of Benghazi. Now, scores of people in eastern Libya are signing up to fight Gaddafi's regime. Libya's former interior minister and former head of the special forces are leading efforts to put together a rebel force despite limited resources. Jackie